Ladies and gentlemen, in this episode, you are going to hear opinions. And while the podcast is endorsed by Uriah Heep, the opinions of the host and various guests do not necessarily represent the opinions of the band or any of the members past or present. With that being said, let's celebrate the music of Uriah Heep. Welcome to Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. I'll be covering every studio song the band has recorded and every bonus track that I can find. Each week we'll go over a new song from the beginning to where they are currently, and as they keep adding albums, I'll keep adding shows. Let the deep dive party begin.
In the magic garden, some were singing, some were dancing.
Hello and welcome to Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. I am your host, Scott Haskin, and I have an interesting song for you guys on today's episode. This song is called Roller, and it's the first of a series of covers, but this is, I guess it still would be considered a cover. This song was written by Uriah Heep's bass player Trevor Boulder and Peter McDonald when they were in a band called Spiders from Mars, but the song wasn't released before Uriah Heep covered and released it. So it gets just kind of a little tricky with the timeline, but basically Trevor and Peter wrote the song. They recorded it with Spiders of Mars, but it didn't get released. Uriah Heep did a cover of it and put it out here in 1977, but then the Japanese remastered CD of the self-titled Spiders from Mars album would come out and then feature their version of the song. So it's a cover because it's not a Uriah Heep official song, but it did come out first. So people might have associated it more with Uriah Heep than the Spiders just for that very reason. So it gets a little bit weird in the timeline, but nonetheless, there are several covers that will be coming up over the next few albums. And, some people, I can already hear it, saying, well, they were having a hard time coming up with ideas, so they started doing covers. Not necessarily true. A lot of times bands will just say, hey, you know what? This song is fun. Let's do a version of it, or let's play it and see how it sounds. And then the rest of the guys start to like it. And the next thing you know, they put it on the album. That happens quite often, actually. And there are times when bands are like, we're just not finding our way. And maybe we should just, instead of trying to write and force ourselves and write something we're not going to be happy with, let's jam out a couple of covers. And then they end up really liking them and putting them on an album. But I have a hard time imagining the talent in Uriah Heep, going through some kind of severe writer's block. It's possible, but I would have a hard time believing that. I think more than anything else, somebody brought a song to the band and said, hey, what are you guys thinking about doing this one? And probably like four of the guys were like, yeah, that's a good idea. And another one's like, all right, well, if you guys want to do it, then I'll do it, whatever, fine. And that's a lot of times how it goes in bands. Interestingly, on the album Infinite by Deep Purple, which was not their most recent was Whoosh. But before that, they did Infinite, and there was a documentary that was made of them recording the album. And they did this little bit that was a tribute to the song Louie Louie. And one of the members of the band was like, I don't think it's a good idea. I don't think we should do it. And the other guys were like, oh, come on. And then the one finally gave in and said, all right, well, I mean, if you guys want to do it, I'm not going to stop you. I'll play it. But, you have compromises when you're in a band. Not all five people are going to agree with all of the decisions. Sometimes you have to know where to pick your battles. Sometimes you have to know where to stand your ground. And a lot of times, you guys want to play a cover? Sure, let's do it. Even if I don't like the song. If you guys want to do it, I'm in. Sure, I'll give it my best. So whatever happened, at the end of the day, they recorded this cover song. And we're going to get into my review, as I have never heard the version by Spiders from Mars. And I've actually never heard the version by Uriah Heep. So I'm flying blind on this one, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. But before we get into the show, you guys know what? It is Monday, and we have some important things to talk about on Monday. First of all, most importantly, if you want to help get Uriah Heep inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in America, as they have been into the, there was like a metal, I can't remember exactly what it's called, but there's a version of it in in Europe where they have been inducted, and we need to get them inducted into the one in America and show our support for the band as well. You can go to the Facebook page, facebook.com/HeepRockHall, and get your name on the petition. The more signatures we get, the more power we have to be listened to. So please make sure you stop by and do that. If you don't want to type all that in, just go to the show notes. There should be a link right there. You can also go to the website, scotthaskin.com, click the Uriah Heep podcast link, and it will take you to the Uriah Heep page where, guess what? There's the link for the petition. See how that works? Very nice and easy for you guys. Speaking of helping people out, we have some people that help the show out that I want to give a huge shout out to because I greatly appreciate each and every one of them. At the $5 Easy Living tier, we have Kenny Wymore and Brad D. At the $3 The Wizard tier, we have Peter Voss, Goran Eriksson, and Frank Thielgaard Mortensen. I can speak today. I really can. Actually, this is the first time I've spoken all day. I'm recording this at 11:35 at night. And these are literally the first words I've said all day. So welcome to my morning. And of course, at the $1 Traveler in Time tier, we have the driest of them all, Airtight Gravesite. Thank you all very much for helping out the show. I also want to thank the people that continue to share the show. Dave White, you are the hero of the Uriah Heep podcast. I'll tell you that. Sharing every episode through the Uriah Heep networks, except for Instagram. And still not sure who does that, actually. But you are greatly appreciated. The director of social media who does most of the posts that you find on Twitter and Facebook. Every once in a while, somebody else will pop on and do one. And they won't tell you that it's somebody else. They'll just say, hey, thanks for the birthday wishes. And you'll be like, oh, okay, so this must be so-and-so because it was just their birthday. But for the most part, Dave takes care of all of that. And I greatly appreciate all his hard work. The great artist who drew the logo, Scott Lazinski, both the day and night logo for the show, and my friends at Audionamics, without which I will not do a podcast without their product, Instant Dialogue Cleaner. Go check them out at audionamics.com. Great group of people. And of course, there are my fellow podcasters, Ace on Music, which you could get on Stitcher and YouTube. Ace is the manager of Uriah Heep, Thin Lindsay, and several other bands that you probably know or may know. And he has a great show that comes out every week, or pretty much every week. A lot of great insight into the music industry. Also, go check out my friend Allegra at gottahear'em.com for live histories of Deep Purple, Emerson, Lake and Palmer, Emerson, Lake and Powell, and a bunch of other really cool information. She works really hard to bring a lot of quality to that website, and she does a great job. And then there are my brothers at the Deep Dive Podcast, ever-growing network. First off, we have Nate and John over at the Deep Purple Podcast, The Simple Man at Skinnerd Reconsidered, T-Bone, Terry Mathley at T-Bone's Prime Cuts on the other side, who just interviewed John Oates from Hall & Oates. I haven't had a chance to listen to it yet, but I have no doubt that's a great interview. Then we've got Rye over at Sabbath Bloody Podcast, Paul, Joe, and David at the In the Lap of the Pods podcast. We have Andy and David at the Hawk Binge Hawkwind podcast, and Eric and Jonathan over at Maiden A to Z podcast. And of course, my buddy Brandon over at the Metallica podcast, Metallicast. So check all those out when you're not listening to Uriah Heep. I know there's like 3 days I don't put out Uriah Heep episodes. So that gives you time to go check out all those other guys. Obviously, I'm going to say listen to the Uriah Heep show first and then listen to everybody else. But yeah, check them all out because they're great people and great podcasts. So I think with all that being said, I think it is time to get into this song Roller, the cover of the Spiders from Mars song. Well, this is pretty funky. Not too far off from Uriah Heep's music. I could see why they would pick this as a song to do. I don't know how much this might differ from the Spiders from Mars version, but I would imagine with Trevor in the band, it's probably pretty similar. They may have put a few touches on themselves to kind of, claim the Heep sound on the song. But I really like it. Some really cool bass work here from Trevor. This is, I think, some of the best stuff he's played so far in the band. And I just like the feel of it. It's kind of a little bit all over the place in notes, but it's got a structure to it that I really like. And I love that little that he throws in there. That's very nice. Kind of similar to what he did on another song that we heard on this, I think it was on this album. But a cool groove nonetheless. We hear Lee Kerslake getting right into it with that fill that transitions into the part we're going to hear next. But the sound is good. The guitars sound fantastic on this song. Nice up in front, not competing with an organ right now. Just really in your face. And so it's nice to hear a little more solid guitar, but the sound is really good. Good mix. And yeah, we're in.
Choosin the side. It's all over. She's just a long on ride.
Okay, I just want to stop it here for a second because there is a lot to unpack, right? I didn't talk about it, but in the intro, there were some nice little sound effects that were placed gently in the background, noticeable but not overtaking anything, because the focus really is kind of on the guitars and bass at that point. But man, these backing vocals are so interesting. First of all, it's just an interesting vocal placement, right? It's kind of leaves a lot of open room, but it's John Lawton singing as strong and focused as ever. But these backing vocals are really interesting. We've got a lot of effects on them, which we don't usually have on the backing vocals. They're usually pretty clear. But again, we're in the disco age. Things are sounding different. People are experimenting with a lot of different things. But I'm hearing some flange, I'm hearing some delays, I'm hearing some heavy reverbs, but I'm also hearing some panning, as they're doing the vocals, they're sweeping across the audio spectrum. And it's really interesting. It's definitely something that's out of the norm for Heep, but has a good feel to it. I think it fits the song very, very well. So whoever was making those decisions, or whomever's, I guess, well done.
Like another, one man will just never do. Don't turn around when she calls out your name. She's gonna break you in two, yeah. But she's a rolling out. She's just a rolling, yeah. Rolling time, cloudy day. She's just a rolling out. She's just a rolling, yeah. But you're gonna laugh away.
Okay, now keeping in mind, I've never heard this song before. I feel like we're about to transition into something a little different. So I thought I'd stop here just in case I'm right and just talk about what we just heard. So that last verse, there was a nice little competition going on. I don't know if you picked up on it, but very hard to the left, we heard some guitar playing going on beyond the regular guitar that we're hearing. And then over to the right, we hear some affected electric piano, kind of just trading off a lick or two there. Sounded really good, though. I liked it. The electric piano is not one of my favorite sounds, but with some gentle effects on it, it can actually be pretty cool. And then we had, just a solid verse going back to the riff, and the bass coming back again with what they were playing in the opening. Sounded really good. Nice and powerful chorus this time. The drums keeping up the tempo. I kept waiting for them to drop back, but they didn't. And that was a nice change right there. I like that. So now the question is, where are we going next? Well, that I was right. That's what happened. Very cool solo, though. Not something too flashy, something that really was defined and different, but stayed very well within the rhythm and melody of the song. I really like that. Actually, it sounded good. And then, of course, when it goes back to the opening riff again, we've got those effects coming back in a little more prominent than they were in the beginning of the song. But just very cool. The song is flowing very well. And now I'm pretty curious to actually hear the Spiders from Mars version and see what that's all about. See how close that comes to this song, and hear what else they did, because this is an interesting song. It's very well written. I don't know how much of it is Uriah Heep's touch versus the original, of course, but either way, the concept of the song is really good. It's strong, and yeah, I'll have to check that out, and maybe you will too.
It's your woman. She's only here for the sun. Yes, now you'll discover she's only here for the fun. And who will move over? Sweet talk with choosing the side. It's all over. She's just a love on a ride. Well, she's a rolling out. She's just a rolling, yeah. But she roll a line away. Well, she's a rolling out. She's just a rolling, yeah. Rolling time call the day. Rolling out. She's just a rolling, yeah. But she roll a line away.
I don't know if you guys noticed or not, but they've added a piano to the mix. It's pretty subtle, actually. It's not too prominent. It's up in the higher register of the piano, but they blended it in very nicely to where you almost don't hear it. But if you're focusing on what's going on, it'll stand out to you a little bit more. Very nicely done, very tasteful. I like that. And again, I'm not that big of a fan of the sound of a piano these days, but I have to say this is very, very nice surprise.
She's just a rolling, 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 just a rolling along. But she roll a life away. Well, yeah.
It's interesting what the guitars are doing here. I'm going to assume, based on the history of what we've heard so far, that Ken Hensley is playing the guitar in the right ear, which is a little more straightforward, and Mick Box is playing the guitar in the left ear, which has a little more vibrato in the playing. It's a little more dynamics, and it's interesting to hear that straight versus the dynamic. Not quite centered. You can really pick out the difference between the two, but they also blend very nicely together. And like I said, this song is very well mixed, and it's got that clarity though to where you could hear individually what the guitars are doing, even though they're blended really well together. So kudos to everyone on that.
Old town is just like another. One man will just never do. Don't turn around with your clothes out your name. She's gonna snap you in two. Well, yeah.
Okay, well, the ending was a little bit weird, I'll grant you. Sounded like something more out of a video game, but this would have been actually before video games were really coming into play. So I'm gonna say this was a little bit ahead of its time, that kind of ending. And maybe I'm saying that because on my other show I'm doing a review of the Pac-Man Fever album, so I'm kind of in that video game mode anyway. But very nicely done. The song from beginning to end, it flowed very nicely. There were some nice changes, some nice, speeding up, dropping it back a little bit. I don't think we've heard this many effects on a song probably since Return to Fantasy, I want to say. There were a lot of vocal effects in Return to Fantasy, but there were some really cool things going on here. They brought back the electric piano in that end section there. Just a very nice blend of guitars. The keyboard's not too intrusive on this one, really just kind of, adding a little bit of thickness to the overall sound, playing a little bit dynamically, but not to draw the focus away, more to support. And it was just a really nice blend, a very well-played song. And I have to think that would be a fun song to play on bass. I'm not a good enough bass player to even try it. In fact, I was joking with Mick the other day. I said, I'm a very novice bass player, but I will challenge any bass player in the world on any song to play the first note. But by the second note, I will concede their victory. I will give up. But the first note I can play. But I'm a very novice bass player. As a drummer, I think I was a pretty decent drummer, but a little out of practice right now. But I think that the generosity of the musicians in this song, especially, not trying to be too forward, just everybody playing their part and playing it well to enhance the song, and just sticking out where they need to stick out, but not. I don't think that anybody was kind of pushing boundaries or pushing in front of anyone else to shine in the song. I think it was very, very well performed and well recorded. I have to say, I love those little effects in there too. Those are a nice surprise. Again, the ending was a little kind of out of the blue, but apart from that, and I actually did like the ending. It was just, wow, I didn't know how to take that or what, because that was completely unexpected. But great song. I'm really glad that they did this as a cover. Now I'm going to have to go see if I can find the Spiders from Mars version. And again, that was on the Japanese release of the Spiders from Mars self-titled album. So, check it out, see what you guys think of it, and see what you thought of this song. It's I think it was a good song. I could totally see why they would want to do it. I definitely feel that they had a Heep touch on it. And I guess I'll have to just compare it to the original whenever I hear it. But yeah, great show, guys. And welcome to, another week. We'll be back tomorrow. Well, we have a special episode tomorrow, and you'll see it when it pops up in your player, because I don't know how it works for any of you guys. If you get a notification that a new episode is aired, if you just know the days and you just go to your, whatever podcast player you listen to, or if you just go to my website and stream it from there, whatever you do. But, there will be more to come tomorrow. Have a great night, guys. Enjoy your Monday. We'll see you then. Cheers. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Uriah Heep, the Magicians Podcast. If you have enjoyed this show, please consider going over to Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast outlet, leaving a rating or a review. Be sure to subscribe to make sure that you are notified when new episodes are available. Please be sure to share this podcast with your fellow Uriah Heep enthusiasts and anyone who you think would like Uriah Heep, which should be everyone. And if you are so inclined, please feel free to contribute to the Patreon account. And if you are not a Patreon subscriber, you can also pay through the PayPal link on the website listed in the show links below. I would also like to thank Uriah Heep for their very generous support of the show, and thank you guys for listening. We'll see you in the next episode. Happy days!